Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Life on Track. I'm here with Victor Hansen. And before we get started, Mark, I want to read your bio because I interviewed you back in 2020 during the pandemic with the Life on Track when I did the telesummit. And then Zoom took over and we started going video. And I absolutely love it. I love it. So let's get into this. Victor Hansen, known as the Chicken Soup for the Soul guy, Mark co-authored the Chicken Soup for the Soul book series with Jack Canfield, which sold over 500 million copies worldwide. He's also written or co-authored 307 other books, including The Aladdin Factor and The Power of Focus. Mark is the CEO of MV Hansen and Associates Incorporated and the president of 1 Minute Millionaire LLC, and so much more. There's so much more we're going to get into. There it is. There it is. You have so many books. Before we start, the main thing is let's find out why you got into doing what you're doing and why. I love your story.
I like to start somewhere different each time. As a little kid, my parents were Danish immigrants and English is a second language for me. And as a result, I was in learning disabled classes, what we call them these days. But from first grade to sixth grade, I was in remedial reading. So that was slow, right? I'm not supposed to be smart. And then, by the way, I just got to do an aside, though, and say that I love my kindergarten teacher. She only weighed about 450 pounds, made chocolate and cookies for us every day, hugged all of us. Back in the old days, you took naps and stayed in school forever and ever. And I said, Ms. Sneesby, when I grow up, I'm going to marry you. She said, that's nice, Marky, but I'm happily married. I said, he'll die. But then as a sophomore in English, I had the greatest teacher ever. And I teach, everybody's got to go out and find great and inspiring teachers in every area of their life. Whatever it is you want to learn, there's a great and inspiring teacher on YouTube. And I'm some people's, you're some people's. But this guy, John Reinhardt, just wound my clock about reading and I got addicted. And then I said, someday I want to write a book. And then at 26, I went bankrupt. I wrote my first little book and was selling I was doing 4 talks a day. Only Tony Robbins and I were nuts. We did crazy amounts of talks because we both taught the same thing. You got to take massive action to get massive result. But I did this little book, Stand Up, Speak Out, and Win. And I said, this isn't a New York Times bestseller. It's not a national bestseller, but it's my bestseller. And I want to sign it to you, your wife, your dog, and your kids, if you have any. And everybody, if there's 370 people in the room, they all bought one. I sold 20,000 copies back in 1974 at $10 each. That's $200,000. Today, that's like $2 million. I was hot.
Yeah.
I didn't write another book for 5 years because I was selling that and making a lot of money and thinking I had a brand new Chrysler Cordoba car with white Corinthian leather. I thought I died and arrived. And all of a sudden I say, whoa, I need to, because I study at least an hour to 4 hours, 5 hours a day, like everybody that's super successful. I mean, Elon Musk said I was weaned on books and then I had parents and obviously Amazon started because of books, Jeff Bezos, and you've got Warren Buffett says I read at least 5 hours a day. Well, I'm sure I do almost that. I probably do more than that because I own a fast growing publishing ghostwriting company in the world. So everybody out there, you got to have a book. Go to Mark Victor Hansen, library.com. We had 81 number 1 books last year and we're cooking it and we're doing biographies for big guys like John Paul DeJoria and the father of desert golf and Ike's famous love sandwiches. Have you eaten at an Ike's famous sandwich yet?
I don't know. In Manhattan?
Well, you would know. It's the best in the world, and he has 132 of them around the country, but he's soon going to surpass Subway because everybody loves this stuff, and he sets them right. Like I'm writing the biography, but he puts them between Oracle and Microsoft right in the middle. So at lunch, everybody goes to his place and there's like a 3-hour line. The guy's, I humbly and respectfully, I'm the world's best-selling author according to Guinness Book of Records. And that's why I want everybody to have a book. And if you can afford us, we charge $30,000 to write your book, basically fiction or nonfiction, or $200,000 if you want to do a biography, but everybody needs a biography and a book. When you get older, a biography is the only gift of love that you give your family, your friends, the future, and you leave as a legacy that teaches what your kids expect. Because Rockefeller wrote to his kids and said, this is what I expect. Mrs. Rose Kennedy said, I expect all of you to be world leaders, and wrote that to the kids.
There you go.
Most parents go, oh, well, you get an iPod education, or you go become a janitor, and no, mommy will be happy. No,
Right.
I can tell you what,
Wow.
I can brag about my grandkids. I got 6, and they're superstars because we have high level standards and high level expectations. I don't care
greatness.
Mechanical stuff. You want me to give an example?
Sure. Yeah. I was saying you expect greatness in your kids. Go ahead. Yes. An example is great.
Yeah, and everybody's got greatness in them. Everybody can find $1 billion talent if money is of high value to you, like it is to me. But our 12-year-old last year became student body president of a 6th grade class and 800 little kids. I got the videos going, Everett. And he did his own speech. He didn't have Grampy help him, which has been my lifelong job, right? But I loved what he had to say. And then he shoots 100 free throws a day because he wants to be I said, what are you going to be, Abby? And he said, at 18, I'll make $30 million a year as a Phoenix Sun. And then after that, I said, what are you going to be? Not thinking he'd have an answer, 12 years old. And he said, well, Grampy, then I'm going to be the manager. And I said, well, what after that? He said, then I'm going to buy him. I said, son, do you understand that's $3.8 billion? I said, and Grampy isn't going to help on that. He said, no, I'll pay for it myself. I mean, the kid everybody is unlimited at the spiritual level. It comes into the mental, it goes to the physical. I mean, this stuffed on wrap if you want, but the fact is, we've got all things are possible. And when you're in your God big sense of self, you're unlimited. And at 12 years old, he's totally unlimited and has desire and is smart enough because Grampy taught him everything's got to be written down and it's got to be in purple because that's God's highest color, top of the rainbow, all that stuff, the electromagnetic spectrum. Wow. And he says, wow, you wrote it down that you were going to be, when I was nobody in 1974 and bankrupt, $2 million upside down, I wrote down, I'm going to become world's best-selling author. And I didn't even tell my partner, Dr. Canfield, on Chicken Soup that I was doing that, but we wrote down and put on a 3x5 card. I'm so happy and thankful we're going to sell $1.5 million in a year and a half. From June 28th, 1993 to Christmas, we'd sold $1.3 million. So we were short 200,000. But then next year I wrote down we'd sell 5 million, and we did. Then 10 million, and then 50 million. Because you can write down anything. It's free. Everybody listening, it's free. and that's why nobody does it. If I charged you $1 million, you'd write $1 million worth of goals, and you'd go accomplish 1 million things. And you'd have healthy goals, HAP goals, spiritual goals, physical goals, emotional goals, and your life would work. Because your life, you're meant to work, but you've got to discover it. And that's what all the self-help books I've read and I write do. By the way, the number is now 321. We haven't been together for 4 years, so I've written a lot more books personally.
I saw you in June.
No, you saw me, but what you just read.
The audience.
Copy.
Yes,
I sent you a new copy. My fault. I should have sent you a new publicity copy. My fault.
Well, it's you just dropped so many golden nuggets right there. And a lot of people don't know what you and I talk about, right? They don't know about spiritual universal law. They just don't know. And so when they understand school. I know. Well, and it never will be because they want to control us. They want to control everybody. So they will not empower you.
But they're not going to get
fire.
We're not going to let them.
I'm on fire to empower people. And and so are you, I learned about this in 1991, as you know, with a cancer diagnosis. And I wrote a book called The Will to Live, which was my memoir about what I learned. I'm like, back then in the 90s, I couldn't write about it. So I had to be cryptic about the way I wrote about spiritual universal law because they thought you were nuts. Now people are much more open to it. So I want you to speak into the spiritual universal law. Like you said it very quickly with regard to I wrote down a goal and I made it happen. I wrote down a goal. Like people don't understand that when you put pen to paper and you put that out there to the universe, that it becomes a thing. And when you live in gratitude, you said, I'm so happy and grateful. When you live in gratitude, that's the key to manifestation. So can you just tap into that for a little bit for the listening audience? Because it's huge.
It is my pleasure to do both, but I want to go back to your curing cancer. First of all, the books we're doing, we write impact books to bring your story to life. So that's number one. Number two, part on just your cancer. We are doing books that are changing the world again because your impact story, and everyone has one. You got one. Everybody watching has one, and they go, nobody would be interested in my story. Yes, they would. And what our book Ask does is show you how to build up the self-worth so you can go do the miracles that you're meant to, because the subtitle, which you interviewed us on, The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny, you were born with a great destiny. The point is, we take a lot of people's books that are so powerful that we have to fictionalize them so we can tell the story. Sort of like when you and I were in high school, we read Animal Farm. Do you remember?
Yes.
And it's 100% against socialism. And it says all animals are equal,
yes,
but some are more equal than others, which is the crap going on right now in the world, not just America. We've got a lot of crap going on, and I don't mind saying it because you got to wake up.
I agree.
Now
I could probably fit the 12 of them in my living room, pulling all the strings, but go ahead.
Okay, so back to the spiritual dimensionality, you got a big S in you and a little s. Little s is your human sense of self, your animal sense of self. The big S is your spiritual sense of self, you know, and you're either God full or God less. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to church. It's like you don't become a mechanic walking into a mechanic shop or a garage. Right? You don't become spiritual because I went to church today. Not that I'm recommending you go to church, and I'm recommending that you read the Bible. And I even did when our publisher said that'll never sell. I did Chicken Soup for the Soul Bible, which we sold 70,000 a week. And I got little stories getting the big stories. And I said, a lot of people are scared of the black and the gray and the silver and they get thrown. So these sell like crazy. But
beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And thank you. And it's my high colors, purple and gold are my corporate color. So the point is you need four things. Number one, you got to know what you want.
Yep.
Here's what you do. Your homework assignment, you choose to accept it, A and B. A, you sit with somebody like you and our bud. So I'd sit with you and 50 times in a row, I neutrally say, Erin, what do you want? And you got to have a new answer 50 times. By the time you're at 50, we know what your real values are. Right. Number two, if you don't have somebody that you trust, and they do the same thing for you, so you'd ask me 50 times in a row. And I had a medical doctor say, gosh, I got 28 years of education. I never found out what I wanted until I did your seminar because I dyaded. People had one ask another. They said, I don't even want to be a medical doctor. My mother said, you will grow up and be a medical doctor.
Right.
Boy, that's a good term. Number two, okay, so you do that. The second way you do it, B, is what we teach in our Ask book, is before you go to sleep, after the dogs are put down and the babies aren't crying and the spouse isn't talking and the phone's not ringing and you're no longer watching TV or reading, you quietly in a secret place, you go into the secret place of the Most High, that's spiritual language, right? And you go inside the theater of your mind and the stage of your imagination and you say, what do I really want? Everyone's got unique talents given to you spiritually. I've only got 4, but they're pretty good. I know how to speak. I know how to write. I know how to inspire other people to do their best in business. And then I know how to connect. I've got arguably one of the best networks in the world. I mean, I've traveled talked to 7 million people live, took pictures with most of them, hugged them, and literally around the world. And I think it's 80 countries or 82 countries in the world. And so I got
to say, by the way, right before I got on with you, Tony Alessandro, I was on the phone with Tony Alessandro, and he said to tell you that he says hi.
Well, I've known him for 40 years, whatever it is, a long time. I mean, and those of us in the business respect those of us in the business that deliver the goods. He delivered the goods. Dr. Tony did a long time ago for a lot of years and helped millions of people. And any one of us can, if your mind gets turned off by the world, turned off by school, your parents, military, whatever, what happens is a guy like me or a lady like you or like Tony turns back on a switch and illuminates you. You go, holy cow. Especially the ones that come up to me and say, holy cow, if he can do it, I can do it. And that's what I want, because I came out of nothing from nowhere and now I'm exceedingly well off. So number one, you figure out what you want and you do it 101 times. Say, God in me knows exactly what I want. God in me knows exactly what my destiny is. God in me knows exactly what my destiny is. And then write it down, because everyone has a genius destiny.
Yes.
And people say, well, you've written more books than anyone alive and you've been 59 times #1 New York Times. All that was a desire, right? You put it in writing. And now it's the reason Crystal isn't here, which I'll say is that our book, Ask, The Bridge to Redeemed Desire, when we wrote it together, we were going to do the first story as a fable, because Denmark is a land of fables. One guy wrote more fables than anybody else. And you know every one of the 147 fables. And do you know whose name that is? The Ugly Duckling, the King Has No Clothes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, who is it?
Hans Christian Andersen.
Yes.
One guy. So I said to Crystal,
Winnie the Pooh.
why don't you become you're the greatest writer on the planet. And you're the goddess of exquisiteness. And she wrote the Fable of Mikhail. We're going to write together. She just had these prophetic visions come through. And then all of a sudden Hollywood comes to us and says, you've got to do this as a movie. And they say, look, this is going to be bigger than Harry Potter. Look, there's always going to be the next thing bigger. Like there are a lot of people that say, I'm going to outsell you in books. I'm going to care if they can sell more than 500 million books. Good for you. I'm
right.
I'm cheering you on. And then I'll do what I did with everyone. Is that once you know what you want, you got to ask. Remember, in this book we teach: ask yourself, ask others, ask God. Once I knew what I wanted, I interviewed the 101 best-selling authors. I didn't ask, how do you write? I've got no right to do that. I'm wasting their time. I said, how did you market millions and millions of books? And whether it was Wayne Dyer or Barbara DeAngelis or my partner, Dr. Jack Canfield, or Nora Roberts or Danielle Steele, whoever, and my neighbor here who just passed away, Clive Cussler, and all of them told me something totally different. So I wrote a wow of a business plan. This is how I'm going to do it. Because you got to give yourself, once you know what you want, what is the program to get there? And the second law is it's got to be in writing.
Yes.
It's got to, whatever it is. And you got to journal every day, and you got to write down at least 10 things that you want new every day. Like my wife and I just wrote 10 things in 1 minute. And the way you do that is you say, look, if you had $10 million, what would you do? In 1 minute, you got to write down 10 things. And that's your homework assignment. We're done, Erin. And you'll be amazed that But then you look at it and you say, is this an appreciating asset, meaning it goes up in value, or a depreciating asset, meaning it goes down? If you're buying Gucci bags, nothing wrong with that if you've got excess money. But if you're buying real estate that makes more, or you're building IP, intellectual property, which is the business you and I are in, which, I've done $2 billion worth of retail books and $1 billion worth of licensing. I'm the only guy in books that licenses. And I tell everybody, come to my seminar to learn how to license and then do it. And matter of fact, I'm doing a giant show on licensing tomorrow with somebody else that's also a giant licensor, because everyone's got a license in them. The richest place in the world is a graveyard, because people die with their business, their songs, their inventions, their books. And I don't want anyone to die poor. You've got an obligation from God, right? If you take care of little things, I'll give you empires to rule. And if you serve a little with excellence, you get to have more to serve. And the greatest amongst you is servant of all. All those are prophetic lines. So number one, you figure out what you want. Number two, you put it in writing. Number three, you got to see it in the theater of your mind. This is where you close your outer eyes, and 4 times a day, you got to visualize it to realize it. And the way Bob Proctor, he and I own 2 great giant companies together, but Bob says, look, we had a 3x5 card, and we said, back to your line. I'm so happy and grateful that I'm going to, in Jackson Mark's case, sell 1,300,000 books by starting June 28th, by Christmas time, 1994. And it was signed by Mark, signed by Jack, signed by our publisher. And you look at it 4 times a day, because that's visualizing. You got to literally brand it into your brain, etch it in the fabric of your being. And because the universe is malleable, mutable stuff. You read The Science of Getting Rich, I'm sure, and you read
all of them.
Right? Yeah. And what happens is you pull it out of the universe. The universe is abundant. The universe is complete. It's boundless. It's infinite. And that's why you saw me in the seminar say, everyone ought to do the infinity sign when they're driving around in a car all day, or when they're just sitting in front of the TV, and say, the infinite's available to me. Infinite genius is available to me. Infinite books are available to me. Infinite sales are available to me. And then you start to condition your mind positively, because the world says you're not worthy, you're too tall, you're too short, you don't have the right makeup, you don't have the right clothes, you don't know the right people, whatever it is that stupefies people. And what you said a minute ago, you say you empower people. Well, the opposite of that is entitle people. And I'm reading the book by Rockefeller, which I love, 38 Letters to John D. Rockefeller's son, from John D. Sr., the guy, the first billionaire. And he's genius. And I now understand how he did exactly what he did, because he tells you, he told his son what you got to do. But the point is, what he's saying is, you're not allowed not to contribute, because, I say Genesis 1:28, in the beginning, God created man and women in his image. Well, that means you're supposed to create. You're supposed to contribute. You're here to be a creator. Every one of us. You're here to contribute, and then you're here to be excessively charitable. And I'm a Horatio Alger Award winner for Distinguished Americans, which means I got the Gold Award in Supreme Court. So it means I've done that.
You're amazing. And, to your point with entitlement, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man how to fish, and he'll eat for a lifetime. That's where the difference between empowering somebody and entitling somebody, I believe. And with regard to the abundance, everybody has their lane. We're all here with our own God-given gifts, right? For you, it's publishing all of those books and making a huge difference. If it's somebody else, it's something else. Everybody has a lane and abundant, you know? But when we look sideways and we compare and despair and everything, we spin out. And that's where we pinch ourselves off from our abundance. And we take on the beliefs. And I want you to speak into this too, because this was so powerful for me. A few years ago, you know, making $999,999.99, no brainer. Like I could do it with my eyes closed. The minute somebody said you had $1 million coaching business, I was like, whoa, I'm a single mom. There's a lot of work that's got to go into that. I can't even imagine. Just with the word million. I was at Sharon Lecter's house. She and I were going over my business model, and she said,
"We're with you at a party on Saturday. We love Lecters."
I love her. That's why when I was together with the two of you, I got so emotional when I was on stage because the two of you were there. I love the two of you so much. So generous.
Thank you.
And so when she said that to me, that was I didn't know it was my paradigm. I didn't know that was running as my subconscious.
It's your limit. It's your glass ceiling, right?
Right. Until she said that. And I was like, that's for the men in my world, because I grew up in Garden City. You know, you're familiar with Long Island. You know, like I lived in Brooklyn until I was 16 and then moved to Garden City as a junior in high school. So I've seen everything. You know, I've experienced everything. And when I was saying that's for the men in my world, I'm a single mom, I couldn't believe it, Mark. And for everybody listening, I went home to work on breaking that paradigm down by visualizing and meditating on millionaire mindset, billionaire mindset within the first 17 seconds of waking up to reprogram the crazy programs that I had there. Let them die of neglect, the old things that weren't serving me. And shortly thereafter, a friend of mine came to me with this invention idea that we now have this early stage technology company it's an 8-figure company, and we're building the portfolio to sell to 9 figures. That never would have come to me. For everybody listening, never would have come to me if I still had the mindset of multiple 6 figures. Yeah, but million, no. I had to do the work. Like you said, you can't just go to church. You got to do the work, you know, and I did the work, and it broke that paradigm down, and it opens the universe up to me. And I thank God every day. I wake up in gratitude every single day, and I journal my gratitude and my intentions every single day of what I want to get done. But let's get back to you, because I also want to hear about the best advice you've ever received.
I'll do that second. I want to finish. I said 4 things. I didn't finish the 4th one. And Jack says, man, how do you do that? You're the only one that opens a loop and never forgets to stop it. But what you learn is that if you put people in suspense going, did he forget that 4th thing? No. What you just said about your partner, once you opened your paradigm, you brought another person in, and I ask everybody in audiences, put 1 and 1 together, and what does it look like? It's 11. You have this strength. And who's the guy who did it? You still live in New York, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Have you been to Andrew Carnegie's house yet at 95th and 5th Avenue? No. Okay, it's owned by the Smithsonian. It'll cost you $5. I'm sure you can go and take a bunch of people with you. But when you go in, it was 60,000 square feet. And remember, this is where everybody stayed when they were in New York. We're talking about Abe Lincoln. We're talking about my hero, Mark Twain. We're talking about Helen Keller. We're talking about the who's who. But here's a guy with a 3rd grade education. It was he and Andy Carnegie built Carnegie Hall. He built 4,800 libraries. He's a mensch. And unfortunately, our school system now teaches that he was a robber baron. No, he gave the library so every one of his people could read and succeed, read and lead, read and go and grow. But you got to read at least 10 pages a day of self-help action books, whether it's yours, mine, or if you don't like me, there's plenty of other stuff. There's a plethora of great stuff. And you know, like even what I just said about Rockefeller. But when you go in Andy's house, first thing it says is, no man or woman gets rich without enriching all others. Number 2, it says authors are the wealth of the nation. Now, I'd add the word nation because he was so pro-American. I am very pro-America, and taught that you got to have free enterprise with constitutional capitalism, which is what I teach and believe. Even at 80 times I went to China, a communist country. I am anti-communist. My parents came out of a socialist country, and I can talk to that in a minute if you want. But what Andy said is, look, reason I became the richest guy is I read the Bible, and the first guy to have a mastermind was Jesus. He had 12 guys before he did his first miracle, watered into wine in Canaan. And I went, oh my gosh, that's right. That is like just beyond genius. And he said, look, so I got 12 guys together. He got Charlie Schwab's great-great-grandfather. Now you know Charlie Schwab's stockbroker, but Charlie Schwab's great-great-grandfather. I'm a scholar in Andrew Carnegie and becoming one in Iraq. And I'm a scholar in I've read 6,000 biographies, so I'm a little bit deep in biographies because I'm writing them and loving them. Anyhow, but he had Frick, and when Bob Allen and I are in New York, we were with Jillian Manis, and we're hustling this book, and we're doing like 9 media hits a day. All of a sudden, we're in the limo going from one media hit to another, and it says, your media hit is just canceled. I said to the limo driver, pull over for a second. And I look over, and it said the Frick Museum. Now, when I was in Art 101, I don't know if you took it in college, but in Art 101, they show all the pictures of the Frick Museum. I go in there and I'm so naive. We teach 7 principles in ask and naivete. You don't know what you don't know. It never dawned on me that I would ever see the Frick. Every item was in the book that I had to memorize. I got an A in art. I love art, and we own a lot of classic art. When you come to our house sometime, Erin, you'll see we own everybody, but mostly guys like my friend Weiland, who's one of my close friends I've done 3 books with. Anyhow, world's greatest marine artist and highest paid artist in the world alive today.
Wow.
But all those guys and I are friends, ladies that I know. I go to the art stuff. Anyhow, it just is amazing what you can do. I hope I finished that story. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So you got to have number 1, you figure out what you want. Number 2, you put it in writing. Number 3, what you did, you see yourself well.
Yes.
You don't see, and you see the little Pac-Man eating all the cancer, and you study the nutraceuticals. You study that you got to exercise. You study that you got to have a rebounder to clean up your lymphatic system. Everybody does, not just say, well, that's nice. You're 76 and you're healthy, but that's just genes. Look, I've had brothers predecease me, and same with Crystal. She's 1 of 9. I'm 1 of 4. We have a different health regime because when I got on the show with you, I was still sweating. We just climbed we live at the top of McDowell Mountain in Scottsdale, Arizona. We climbed early this morning, but I came to be on your show as fast as I could afterwards.
Oh, I love you. I love you. And thank you for sharing all of that. And you're absolutely right. Even with the exercise, when I had cancer, it was non-Hodgkin's lymphoblastic lymphoma in 1991. Very few people lived with that, for anybody who doesn't know. And it was a crazy, egregious 2.5-year protocol. And the doses I was getting at Sloan Kettering in Manhattan were beyond the local North Shore University Hospital's legal limits. And, I would put weights around my wrists and weights around my ankles and just walk. And my mindset was excellent health. I'm focusing on it because I read the books. I was a stockbroker on Wall Street, fully licensed before this. I had no clue about it. I was so superficial. I loved my Chanel bag and my house out in the Hamptons. And I just didn't know. I don't know. I was so superficial. I had no clue. My faith in God was up in the sky somewhere. And I'm a Roman Catholic who went to an all-girls Catholic school. My whole life. Nobody taught me this. So when I was in the hospital, I was like Rhonda Byrne from the beginning of the movie The Secret. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I read John Kabat-Zinn's Full of Catastrophe Living, which introduced me to mindfulness meditation, and Shaki Gawain's creative visualization. So I married meditation with visualization.
Shaki's great. I wrote the endorsement of that. Yeah.
Really? Of course you did. I just tell everybody to read that book. I'm huge in visualization, but anyway, vision and decision. But that's what I believe saves my life. And like you said, the exercising, with the weights, just walking around, doing what you can. And I was going in, and I'm in a treatment room. Everybody's getting sick except for me. They're saying, how come you're not getting sick? So I started coaching before it was vogue to call it coaching in 1991, sharing with them everything that I did. But anyway, that's how I started. After that, the doctors at Sloan kept telling me, they were confused how I kept living every time they came in saying I was going to die, and called my parents to come say goodbye to me. And I was like, get the hell out of my room. That's
voodoo medicine.
It's also, this is where I believe, and Mark, naivete. A lot of my success in life came from being naive. I wasn't aware enough to be afraid of something, that got me to the next level. And with regard to the doctors, I was like, they're just human beings. Like, a little bit of naivete got me far. But anyway, getting back to you, life is so fun. Life is when you understand this.
Yeah, let me hitchhike on what you said. One of the first biographies we did was when I went bankrupt and upside down. 2 guys took me to go see Reverend Ike up in Harlem. It's actually Washington Heights is where he was, and 5,000 people, and he had 20 million people following in America, 20 million in Africa, and he was teaching prosperity 1 and health 2. His health health, healing, and blessing seminars. Never heard anything like it. And the first day he says, God is rich, and if you're not rich, then you're not godly. And I went, what? And he says, your cup runneth over. That's in the Bible, right? And John 10:10, I've come, you might have more abundant life. So when he died a few years ago, his wife came to me and said, look, Mark, you and Crystal got to write his book because you're his best friend, An Extraordinary Life of Influence. And he teaches how to become affluent, which is what gets people. But the second chapter is the biggest chapter in Reverend Ike. And everybody's got to get one of these and read it, and get two and get one for a friend that you love, because he teaches how you do what you just did, supernatural healing. Yeah. Because supernatural healing, he'd have a whole healing section, and people come in wheelchairs and walk out of the wheelchairs, break the canes. I was there once, and 4 guys bring this woman in with tuberculosis, healed it before the end, because it's done on you according to your belief. And what he said is, most of you believe that Jesus 2,000 years ago could do it, but you don't do it. But look, it says the same. God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Therefore, God's eternal. In you, there's a spirit that's eternal. In you, there's a healthy person wanting to get out. And that's why when his wife said, well, will you write the biography? I said, Ms. Ike, I love you a lot. You and I have been friends. We raised a lot of money for 911 together. We did all kinds of great things over our lifetime, but I haven't done one. She said, no, Reverend Ike on the other side told me that you're going to do this. And I go, I am? Okay, I'll do it. And Crystal and I had a ball writing that, and the sales have just gone crazy here and in Africa. So, because for the first time, Americans, I want all of you to write a book. I've said this about 4 or 5 times during this talk, because when you do, you find out who you are. But what happens is, books today aren't like when I started this thing 50 years ago. It's hard to believe because it feels like yesterday. But when I showed you the first book, we were talking about an American market, and that was it. Today, it is an 8 billion people market, because we all go everywhere, because everything is everywhere. And now with Skylink, with my hero, Elon Musk, I do a lot of videos. You can watch all my videos.
Love that guy.
He's my hero at every level. And he's going to clean up the government and get rid of 2/3 of the waste in government, which thank God. I mean, I'm licensed in one of my companies. I'm an insurance leader, and they haven't sent me my license back. And it's probably because of my political affiliation, but I'm going to clean that lady out of there, because I sent my money and everything, and it's been 6 weeks. It's just craziness like that. Just like Elon Musk taking off the rocket ship, and in the water department saying, you left too much water on the platform for charging $140,000. And he said, hey, one of my houses here in Florida, it rains here every day. Yeah. What are you talking about? We have water.
Or even sending the rockets up and bringing the people back,
and safe. And by the way, he did it for half the price of Boeing. Boeing charged twice as much. They couldn't do it. He does it for half the price, and it came back
with precision. I love this. I wrote a book. It was my first fictional book for adults called Work Love, to bring during the pandemic, to bring the culture of love into the workplace, because people felt disrespected. And, so anyway, it was my first fictional book. So I created a company called Halo Corp and partnered it with Elon Musk's SpaceX. I love Elon Musk. I love that man. So if you know him personally, tell him I said hi.
Well, by the way, here, I don't know. I know we're airing live, so he is on the tour to all the swing states now. I mean, he's been hanging out in Pennsylvania for the last couple of days. So if you really want to see him like we do, like we live in Arizona, we know when he's coming, and we're going to go visit him and meet him, because I have not met him yet, but I'm a fan because, he's done remember, I say the word impossible means I am making it possible.
Yes.
I've just reiterated that as one of my, I've got a quote book and all that stuff, which I want to tell you a cute story about that. But he is making the impossible possible. Landing and saving all the instrumentation, making a new cell phone, making a new computer, making robots that really work. So we, and we're going to have more employment, not less employment. The doomsdayers are saying, oh, the robots are going to take. No, it's going to have more employment, more business, but it's going to be more thinking businesses. And
we're up leveling. We're elevating. We're elevating. As a human being. And Musk is one of those in the forefront.
Right.
For the highest good of all concerned. I like that. For the highest good of all concerned, elevating humanity. And so, yes, let me know, because I would love to meet you there when you go see him. I would love to shake his hand.
Yeah, well, the point is just go online and find out, because he's going to have to come to your state too.
Okay, to New York also. Okay, okay, perfect.
Yeah, I mean, he's just. he is fulfilling the most potential of his life, like every one of us is supposed to do. It's not Alon and not me. I have no envy, no jealousy, none of that green stuff.
Right.
Because other people come and say, well, nobody else can sell as many books as you. I said, yes, they can, but they got to do the same work ethic and the same think ethic that I do. That's why the Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich. It wasn't work and grow rich. It was think and grow rich. Right. But Alon is using, I think he's got your IQ gets better as you work more. And I love, Chris and I read, other than our own work that we have to read, we read at least an hour a day. But everybody, normal people, 10 pages a day of self-help action will skyrocket you. And the next year, the old you, the little s you will be gone, and you'll have a new big super you, and you'll have Superwoman or Superman t-shirt.
Yeah. And I love when Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, says you have to change. He's so good. I met him at a conference like a year or two ago. But I love when he says you have to change your personality to change your personal reality. And it's so true. Like you, I read multiple books a week. I read every single day. And I love Audible because I listen to more books in my car than I do music. And I love music. But Joe Dispenza, when he said that, I was like, he's absolutely right. Like, I'm not the same person I was when I was married. And I'm not the same person I was when I went through the divorce, when I had to become like a fighter. And with everything, then you have to let those past yous go. And
the old man go.
Right. And when you do, you just keep up leveling, like 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, as you learn and grow. Onward and Upward is all about learning and growing, right? Which is what you teach. And Joshua has a comment here, and he says, happy to be here, gaining value from both of you. And Michelle Myers Hiatus says she's one of my coaches. I just started my Life on Track coaching agency where I get them certified in coaching and then teach them how to be a speaker and business growth and all that kind of stuff. And you're going to join us in December to my group for that one also. Michelle Moraz and Joshua saying, great to see, because Joshua met Michelle when we were in Scottsdale. So getting back to you, I'm dying to know the best advice that you've ever gotten. I'm
going to answer your earlier question, and then I'm going to do the best advice I ever got.
You're good at remembering these things. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. In Ask, we interviewed a guy who's blind. Now, I want to do his whole story so you got it, because this is going to go to what you say you listen to books on Audible. Ladies and gentlemen, 25% of you are dyslexic. That means you read backwards or upside down, or you read super slow, or you've been told you're stupid, or you're ADD or ADHD. That's all. Forget that. Okay, so let me do this story, and it has a great end. But my friend, who I didn't know, when I'm selling 15 million books a year and I'm skyrocketing, and it's so busy I haven't got time to breathe, much less help somebody else. But Charles Tremendous Jones wrote me a letter, and then he called me and said, Mark, you got to write a foreword to this book. I said, Charlie, you don't know how busy is, man, because I got the books we're selling, and we're coming out with 4 new books a year, and I'm going crazy here. He said, no, this is going to be the best book you ever read. I said, oh, man, I do a lot of best books I ever read. But okay. He sent me The Ultimate Gift by Jim Stovall. Now, Jim Stovall was becoming an NFL player. That was his whole goal at 18 years old, to become a superstar football player. And he goes in for the test, and the doctor comes back and said, Jimmy, I got the worst news for you in the world. You're going to go blind in the next 30 days. You've got a terrible disease, and you're never going to see again. Well, long story short, he gets self-incarcerated in a 9x12 room. He's got a telephone, a television, and back then they had a fax. And he's bitching and moaning, and his mommy said, look, Jimmy, you go down to the blind meeting, see if they can help you. He gets down there, he sits next to a blind woman who's a legal stenographer with great hearing. And he says, somebody ought to do something about TV where you and I can't. I love movies and TV, and I couldn't see if somebody threw a right hook. And she said, well, she hits him in the ribs and asks and says, Jim, we're somebody. Why don't we do it? And they created Narrative TV, and Narrative TV worldwide is bigger than Netflix. In America, it's 14 million people every day, $6 a month to see Narrative TV because they're reading impaired. Anyhow, he wrote this book. This is so good. Jim Stovall has done the most extraordinary job. It has got to be a movie, because I can see The Ultimate Gift. And if you haven't seen the movie, it was done with Raquel Welch. It was done with James Garner. It made him $100 million, right? And he says, look, when Mark Victor Hansen talks, I listen. But what is important here about your listening to books, Jim Stovall, who's also our champion, blind weightlifting champion for the Olympics, is an amazing guy. But he listens to one book every day, but he doesn't listen at 1 speed, 2 speeds, 3 speeds, 4 speeds. You can turn your audio up as you learn to 5. So he listens to a whole book in an hour or less.
Yeah.
And the guy is the wisest man that I know. And like when I have a problem or a thing, remember we told you got to have a mastermind alliance. Jim and I, if you call him, and if you haven't had him on, you want Jim on, but is it, and he's written a lot of books now, 50, but he's a genius. But you start with the ultimate gift and you go, oh my gosh, I love this. Or you listen to it on audio like he does, and you start to learn faster. Because let me just do part B of that same story. Like I said, we're doing books now for everybody. But a guy here in our neighborhood who was told he was ADD and ADHD, he'd never get a job, never employ anyone, and because he was unemployable, the teacher thought. No, his mind was too fast, is what the problem was. He fixes one garage door, does so well, he fixes another. Pretty soon he's got to hire people to do it. Now he owns the biggest garage door company in the world, A1 Garage Door. His name is Tommy Mello. You need him on your show. He now trains people in 6 weeks, gives them a truck and everything. 2 of his guys made $1 million each last year. Last year, he made $650 million. He invented a brand new spring for the garage door because remember, it's little improvements for everybody else that makes a big improvement. You see, here's business, everybody in a nutshell, everyone. An entrepreneur, a business person finds a problem, fixes a problem, leverages the problem, and makes a vast fortune. And that's free enterprise in America. And my daddy taught me the more enterprising you are, the freer you are. And obviously I'm enterprising, writing, selling books, marketing books, and trying to help everybody become successful because each of us is here to inspire the rest of us. Anyhow, so this guy is doing it, but a lot of the people he has work are like him, dyslexic and ADD. So he makes them listen to books. You go into Tommy Mello's office and a wall as big as my wall right here is glassed in. And the first book is a book that got him going is Dale Carnegie's book. Then he read our Ask book, then his book, Elevate, and then Think and Grow Rich. And he said, those are the 6 books you're going to do in the next 6 weeks or you don't graduate and I don't give you a truck and I don't give you a marketplace. And he's opening up now in Canada and in Europe and everywhere. And he's an enormous franchise and he's a kid. I mean, whatever he is, 32 or 33 years old. I mean, yeah, and he'll be a billionaire this year because now he's with 35 states last year. This year he'll be, I say we because I'm writing his other books and helping him because he dictates, we figure out how to make it irresistible, compelling prose. And he's helping so many people. Like that's what I was going to say. He's the #1 Audible sold with his book, Elevate, right? Or last week. I don't know if it is today. If you go online by Elevate, you go, holy cow. And the guy's making, everyone says, well, will I ever make my 30 grand back that I pay you? I said, it's up to you whether you sell it or not, but everybody is getting it. And we teach in books, it's got to be original. His story is original. You've never heard anyone make money in garage doors before.
Right.
I don't think. Number 2, it's got to be transferable, meaning he is transferring. He's got thousands of people out with his trucks painted with his picture on them, A1 garage door. And number 3, it's got to be inevitable that once they listen to this, they teach all their stuff. They get their kids, they get their family working, they get their relatives working. Everybody's better off and nobody's worse off, all of what you were saying. And so we are in the most exciting times under the circumstance if you are awake.
Yes.
If you're asleep and you're scared and you go, oh, I don't know what's going to happen and there's going to be a world war and the Israel thing is happening and the Taiwan thing is all of them are going to get solved in the next few months, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, and that's what Napoleon Hill calls hypnotic rhythm in Think and Grow Rich, and that's what Napoleon Hill calls drifting and outwitting the devil. Like when we look at the news, of course you did. I love you.
Sharon. By the way, I wanted to tell you this earlier. Everyone says, well, Sharon sold 70 million copies of Rich Man, Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki. Aren't you guys competitor with your 1 Minute Millionaire and the 7 Money book? I said, there's no competition.
Right.
Just in America, we have 360 million people, and I sold 3.6 million. So I sold 1% of the people in America bought our 1 Minute Millionaire, which everyone needs to read because it's 2 books in one because it's original. One side we did the left side, we did your left brain, the right side we did your right brain, and nobody at Random House, they gave us $1 million to write it, See the butterfly? Can you see that butterfly fly away? By the time I came up with that idea, I said, by the time you get done with the book, your butterfly flies to financial freedom because that's what you're supposed to have.
Beautiful.
And now I just talked to Bob Allen, who I did this book with. Where's this picture I saw a second ago? There's Bob and I. And I said, we got somebody that wants now to make the movie that we wanted to do 20 years ago because God's delays aren't God's denials.
That's right.
And everyone says, well, and they said you couldn't be number one on 2 lists. I said, no one's ever done it, but I can do it. And we did it. Right.
There you go, like the 4-minute mile.
We melted down Amazon.
It's like the 4-minute mile. Nobody thought they could do it until somebody did it, and you did it. So people, and I love that you're not into competition. That you're just constantly creating. Because that's the way.
Competing with me. I'm not competing with Sharon or you or anyone else.
Exactly. And I don't even look at it like competing with ourselves. We're creating. We're conscious creators. Right. That's what we are. Most people are creating by default. They're just living life doing the same thing like Groundhog's Day and just creating by default. They don't realize that when you set intentions. And like in the beginning, when you said, when you know exactly what you want, and you write it down and you think about it and you visualize it and everything else, and then you take the steps to go make it happen. That's being a conscious creator. And that's how they call me the miracle maker also. The coach of the coaches, the miracle maker. But that's how miracles happen. But miracles are normal.
Yep.
Miracles are normal.
The best advice I ever received. Okay, so I read this little book a long, long ago, and I've read it every year since. It says it works, right? And it says, write down exactly what you want. Well, I went through a painful, expensive divorce. So I wrote down 267 things I needed in my ideal wife, which I printed in this book, the 20th anniversary issue of Chicken Soup for the Soul, because everyone that's single that wants an ideal other person, most of us go back to when you're in high school. I want him tall, dark, and handsome. If you're a woman, and if you're a man, I want eye candy. Oh, God, you're so superficial. Get real, get depth. So
exactly.
Here's all the stuff I wrote down in the 20th anniversary. You can buy these now in thrift books for $3. You say, well, you don't make any money then. It's okay. But all the stuff I wanted my wife to have a nurturing spirit, have her own deep spiritual practice. She had to meditate. She had to be creative, negative stuff, non-smoker, non-alcohol, non-drug. She had to be charitable. She had to have her own money.
Yeah.
My first wife married me for my pocketbook, and that's not going to happen twice.
Right.
She had to be clean, neat, and smell good naturally. She had to be fun to be with, had to want to be with my friends, totally loves me and demonstrates it, likes my business. It just goes on and on. But everyone get this only to copy it, not, make your own list if you're single of what it is you want, or if you're married and happy, what is it you want to do with your life? Because at the end of your life, you get to look back and the only thing you get is your memories. So what memories are you creating that no one else could create? Because every one of us is unique and you want your uniqueness to unique up on you, so to speak.
Unique up on you. And let's talk about authenticity. But first, I want to go back to your list for Crystal. And what I love about your list, and I think this is true for everybody, and I'm trying to live by it as well. What we want on our list from somebody else is what we need to be. And exactly. You are what you were looking for in the woman. So I love that.
Well, we're about to do some big movie shows and TV shows on QVC and everywhere else. And the guy says, you guys are a formidable couple. And why? Because we decided to be a formidable couple. Everyone says, well, you're rich. Why don't you retire and go buy an island? No, I had a $4 million house in Kona Bay Estates. I loved it, but I don't want to drink martinis every night and watch sunset. That isn't who I am. I'm here to contribute. And there's nowhere in the Bible that says, go out thou and now retired 55, 65, or 72 and a half. What kind of idiot are you? I mean,
I think that's a social experiment. It's not even, I don't even think it's healthy. I think I couldn't even imagine retire. I don't want to ever, I love doing when you love doing what you do, the thought of retirement is like, how boring. The thought of retirement is boring to me.
Yeah, by the way, I just won. Mike Duffy does the award called the Happiness Hall of Fame, and he's got Mother Teresa and all the famous people. I won the award, and his question is, what's more important, to be happy or have meaning? I said, you can't be happy unless you have meaning in your life.
Perfect.
And the meaning comes from being passionately purposeful in a direction towards your destiny. And everyone has a destiny. If you're alive, you still got a destiny. Now, if you haven't fulfilled it, Here's how we know. There's 20,000 near-death experience NEDs on YouTube, and Crystal and I've watched a gazillion of them. But every one of them, they go to the other side and they see more beauty, more music, more love, more joy, more everything, and they want to stay. And whatever their spiritual image is when they get there, whether it's Jesus or Moses or whatever, or Krishna or whatever, they said, no, your job wasn't done. You had a obligation when you're back on Earth. You're going back, and all of a sudden they go right back through the silver cord into their body, and then they see the world totally different. So if you don't do the you came to do, I mean, you signed up for something before you got here. All of us.
All of us.
All of us. I don't know what anyone else's is. I mean, I can sit with you, and usually I can see it pretty quick. I mean, obviously I ran a $100 million company, and I saw a lot of people come through our seminars, 4,000 a weekend for 40 weekends a year, and talk to all of them. And I said, you can't hear what here's what your state of mind is. It says, this is what you're supposed to be doing right now. Now, I believe you have multiple destinies over a lifetime, but right now you're telling me that this is what you're supposed to go amplify, magnify, and magnetize and exponentialize. And they go, wow, how'd you do that? I said, well, that's what I do every day. I said, of the four things, one of my talents is seeing talent in people that they can't see. A lot of them say, well, I want you in my business. I say, well, you don't need me. You just need you.
Well, they need you to help them see themselves and what they're capable of, Right. So once you empower them with that, then they'll be able to continue. And Eric, our buddy Eric Swanson, says, yo, look at these leaders. Hey, Eric's
a great leader. He's awesome.
Yes, he is. And Wayne Russell says, what is the number one step to launching your book? Which is a great question, Wayne.
Okay, I'm assuming you already wrote it. So if you wrote it, what you got to do is spend 10% of your time writing a great, perfected book, and you don't let your eyes and your editor's eyes or your spouse's eyes be the only eyes, because they're going to go, oh, yeah. No. Like when we sold 19 million copies of Chicken Soup at the Teenage Soul because we had Nickelodeon tests on 12,000 kids, and we took the names off every author, whether it was Mark or Jack or Art Buchwald or Irma Bombeck, right? So the story had to stand on a scale of 1 to 10 or 10 plus, that you read the story once, you owned it, and you could go tell it. And that sold 19 million copies. So once you got a great book you're 10% done. Now you got to spend 90% of your time hustling, marketing, selling, advertising, and doing it. And you got to every night go to bed and say, what is my newest marketing idea? What is my newest marketing idea? What is my newest book marketing idea? What is my newest book marketing idea? And you do that 101 times. Every night you wake up with new ideas. And I'm still doing it now. I've been doing this 50 years and still come up with great ways to sell books. We're doing stuff now that have never been done. Like we did John Paul DeJoria's book called Success Without Sharing His Failure. It doesn't come out until February, but JP has a lot of companies. He's worth billions of dollars, and he started out homeless twice and had nothing. So he came from nothing to something. He saved the island of Barbuda. He feeds 40,000 people a night in Austin, but he owns 37,000 beauty salons in 132 countries. Well, we're going to sell his book in every beauty salon. No one's ever done that before. And then he created Patron, and while they sold it, he asked them if we could put an order form in every one of the 100 million bottles of Patron a month. Well, that's $1 billion too. If you sell 1 in 1,000, that's 1,200,000 books a year.
Look at that.
That's called bypass marketing, Wayne. And other than me, I'm the only one that does it, because everyone's saying, I'm going to sell them at a bookstore. Well, hell, you're not, because bookstores don't exist as much thanks to COVID, which is a piece of crap also.
Right. Amazon, right?
Yeah, and what happens is we went from 19,000 bookstores, we're left with 400. And they're pretty picky about what books they'll sell. So you figure out how do you sell it otherwise, and then go backwards into bookstores, not forward into bookstores. Because in the old days, I could go into a bookstore, go on a media in Kansas City, and have at 10 o'clock and the media, and at lunchtime have 400 people there and sign books like crazy, right? But that doesn't exist today. Maybe it'll come back. But at the moment, you got to figure out how to market your book in a way that no one's ever marketed before. I was on 50 million Diet Coke cases for 6 months with our book Chicken Soup, The Romantic Soul on one side and Nora Roberts on the other side. And we sold and tithe. I got Nora to tithe back 10%. We got 15,000 kids into Boys and Girls Clubs, because at the time I had 397 employees, mostly women, and they all had kids at the boys' clubs. And I said, "Will you go over there? They're out of money, and they want me to give money." And I said, "Well, I could do that, but let's see how we could get a real amount of money. Who is the major sponsors? Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola people don't drink. People who drink Coca-Cola don't read. People who drink Diet Coke read. So we're on 50 million Diet Coke cases a month for
really?
With a little, and we did a little sampler in the book. And
wait, how do you know that people that drink? I don't like soda. But how do you know that
you do your A/B test? We did the A/B test.
Wow, people that drink regular Coke don't read. That's interesting. It's kind of funny. That's
it's tragic.
It is tragic. Funny, not funny, haha. Funny, strange.
Yeah.
You know?
Funny. Well, like and the head of the Red Cross, Liddy Dole, who I don't think's with us anymore, said, "Hey, Mark, I'm at Horatio." Said, "Hey, you got all these great ideas, and you're overflowing all the time with enthusiasm. We're out of blood, and if somebody gives a pint of blood, they save 3 lives immediately, and if we make a platelets, 9 lives. Will you help us?" I said, "Easy." I said, "Let's go to medical docs." Said they won't give it. They do blood and guts all day, but they won't ask the patient who they've just saved their life. And I said, "Oh God, there's 570,000 medical doctors." I said, "Okay, look, one of 4 markets I do is chiropractic. I got 10 honorary doctors, 3 on chiropractic. Life University in Atlanta and Texas. It's Parker University and Cleveland in LA. Anyhow, all 77,000 doctors and chiropractors have heard me at one time or another somewhere because I train them how to have $1 million practice. Because if you do a volume practice, you're going to be a better healer. And if you're not a good healer, you're not going to get a volume practice. Right. So whether you're doing this or an activator gun, which is inside information. Anyhow, I said, "Look, guys, all of you have patients that haven't come in for 6 months or 6 years, and you got their address. Let's write them and say, we're going to have a blood mobile out in front of the practice on this day for a week. And you're going to call 800 Give Life and say, Mark Victor Hansen sent you. And if you give a pint of blood, you get a free adjustment. And anybody in your family that's over 18 that can give it gets free adjustment. And then if you guys are open, I want you, when you die, whether you're cremated or buried, make sure you got on your driver's license, you're going to give all 9 pints of blood to keep somebody else alive. You don't need, mine says, make sure I'm dead, and they give away my eyes and my heart and my liver, and all the stuff's in really good shape because, like I told you, I'm a monster exerciser and health nut. And so I give really good blood. But
you're going to live to 127 with the option for renewal.
That's right.
You told me that.
I want everyone. I'm still a spokesperson again for the Red Cross. Now we're doing it with somebody other than the chiropractors this time. It's so way cool. It helps me, and then we give everybody a little chicken soup book or whatever book I'm doing. Now we're doing the Ask book. But the point is, right, you give the blood, we'll give you the book, and then they end up buying more stuff from us because they said, well, I never heard of Mark Victor Hansen. He's sold a lot of stuff, so I must read him now. And we're trying to get everyone to read. So this is bypass marketing 101. And I can go on and on. I can tell you tens of these, but we're doing some stuff now that's just so cool. Because you keep getting better at the ideas. Like you said, you elevate and escalate and improve because you're here to be exponential. Can I talk to that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to respect your time, but I'd love to keep talking. You let me know when you have to go. So
yeah. So the smartest guy in I would say Elon Musk is the smartest guy, but the guy with one of the most guys with the most patent is oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name. I can see his face. I can't pull it in. Anyhow, he teaches that if you do stuff linearly, you take 30 steps down a street, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, you're 30 steps down. And that's the way people make money. But he said, if you do it exponentially, it's 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. $1 in 32 evolutions becomes $1 billion. And that's why Silicon Valley with software makes so much money. But every one of us needs to be exponential. Now you say, well, I'm not exponential. Let me prove it to you. When you were born, 2 little cells got together, and now you're trillions of cells.
Right.
Your heart beats 72 times a minute if you're average, right? High or low. Lower, you're going to live longer. I'm down at about 60 because I exercise so hard every day. But the point is, and Zig Ziglar used to brag that he was at 44. And I thought, God, that's great, Ziggy. Anyhow, you're gonna, but that's 37 million heartbeats a year. That's exponential. Everything about your brain is exponential, but you underuse it unless you figure out what you want, put it in writing, visualize it, see it before you can have it, and then put together a team to get your dream. And team means together everyone accomplishes miracles.
And with regard to the team, have people there that will help you get rid of those self-limiting beliefs and that self-doubt and that stuff that's going to hold you back, which I believe, because I know Wayne, and so I think part of that is the self-doubt and a little bit of fear that it's not going to work out. But when you surround yourself with people, whether it's coaches or mentors or whoever that can help you get rid of the self-doubt and the fear, that fear, lack, and scarcity mentality that I can't stand, because we do live in an abundant world, like you said, exponential. It's it's exponential. Anything and everything is possible. So why not something huge? Everybody thinks so small. Literally, everybody's so small. It's like bizarre how small.
I wrote the book, How to Think Bigger Than You Ever Thought You Could Think, up there. See the book with bigger on it?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, How to Think Bigger Than You Ever Thought You Could Think. Yeah. Now, I got lots of books, but there are too many.
You're a one-stop shop for everything. I love it.
Just this stuff that I use and I believe in that, but I want others to look. It's done unto you according to belief. So if you change your belief, you change your life. If you change your thinking, you change your life. What you heard Dispenza say, if you change your personality, you change your persona, and your persona gets bigger. You go out and start to serve more. And you're going to have critics. And you're going to have rejection. When we started Chicken Soup, we got 144 publishers say, hit the road, Jack. And my joke is, I said, well, you don't like Jack. Do you like me? I mean, Jack, I just love teasing about that. Jack teases the other way, so it works okay.
That's so funny. But it's also like Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss got rejected.
Yeah, Dr. Seuss is a perfect example. And here we're helping write the book for all of his artwork, living artwork and masterpieces are at the Antiquus Museum, which means keep moving forward, with Philip Payne. He runs it and he sells art, jewelry, and books. And we're doing Philip Payne. He's got a great book coming out. I'm not allowed to talk about it yet because I got an NDA, but if you come to Scottsdale in Old Town, he's got the best gallery, and you go in and try, if he's there, he's not only a great artist, he's one of the great living sculptors of our time, but he was also a great writer, because like Weiland, I just wrote the foreword to his new book on quotes, and he wrote the foreword was written by Dr. Sylvia Earle, head of National Geographic. I mean, there are a lot of people out there, and they'll all help you. That's what's amazing. Yeah. Today, if you're not succeeding, it's because you're not helping yourself. And the line is, of course, God helps those who help him or herself.
Yes, and it's the power of association. It's the 5 that we surround ourselves with. Like who is everybody surrounding them? Who you ask yourself? Those of you listening, watching, who are you surrounding yourself with? Do you think maybe, they're adding to you playing so small, or keeping you in the self-doubt and the fear because those are cards that you were dealt, or, like it was generations of this before us. This is what we just have to be used to, or, or just some people are told by their parents they're not good enough and they're not worthy. And then they live that out for a lifetime. When you can break through all of that noise and get it out of that program, like a computer, your subconscious mind is a program. What is impressed in the subconscious mind has got to express itself in the outer world. So you don't want to keep creating negative things for your life. You can reprogram, like a computer, what's going on in your subconscious mind, so that you start expressing really wonderful things that you want in life, that you want to create, because you're a conscious creator. I just have another question for you, Ethel. And Ethel was at my event also in 2022, where you gave me the video, and Mitzi was there. So Ethel flew in from LA for that one. And she said, I have a great movie idea, From Misery to Marital Bliss, which has 10 biblical principles that revolutionized our marriage. I have the script. What should my next move be? I met you on our Kyle Wilson's mastermind. I see. Or what does that say? I see. Thank you for your wisdom. I appreciate you and Crystal. So for a movie idea.
I got to tell you, Ethel, getting a movie done has got to be one of the, like the challenge that Jack and I had to get our book published and distributed was a stretch until we went and sold it ourselves. And a little publisher that was bankrupt, we didn't know it at the time, said you got to buy 20,000 copies at $6 each. Well, we had to sign a contract that that's $120,000 investment. That's a lot of Jack to get going, money to get going. Movies are in exactly the same place. In a movie business, because we've been in and out of Hollywood, we got an agent who's basically fired us now because it didn't sell, but a great agent. But he said, well, the company that wants you is 10 minutes from your house. I said, look, I'm on the who's who list in Arizona. I'm a who here. I don't think that. He said, well, go look at the map and put it in your Google search map. And sure enough, PureFlix, which just made God's Not Dead, wanted to pay $4 million for our movie. Well, that was at the beginning of COVID, and then COVID shut down the industry. Then the minute they come back, they were bought by Sony Affirm, and all of a sudden Sony Affirm said, we're not doing any movies, because suddenly the writer's strike happened and the movie strike happened, which is all against paying actors a lot or paying writers, which I am on the side of, let's get paid for our value. Let's get paid for our talent. Let's get paid for our services. The Bible clearly says an author is worth his or her hire. Well, if you put it in your mind and visualize it, and Crystal and I have visualized now that we're going to do this movie, we've had a lot of people, gone through a lot of people. So, a girl's got to kiss a lot of frogs before she finds a prince, is that old metaphor from our friend who I talked about earlier, in Denmark, Hans Christian Andersen, which is too bad. Yeah. Anyhow, so you got to go kiss some frogs, I'm afraid, and you got to test the waters yourself. And be an endless asker, because you don't know who's going to ask. On Crystal's birthday, I can't do the names of any of the people, but this guy that's got muscles on his muscles, who we'd never met before, and said, what are you guys doing? So, well, we want to do a movie. And he, during this executive dinner, he runs out and gets somebody on the phone, comes back and gets Crystal and says, Crystal, you got to talk to her. And it was a Vulcan mind meld, because we'd put her out in the ethos. This is why, in The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles, he wrote us out of the Depression of 1898. He says it's a plastic pulse that keeps going, and if you keep putting it out, right, this is a law of resonation, law of frequency, right? And everything's a frequency in universe, right? And the frequency. We just met with somebody that I is now going to make it and has the money and has the desire, and but hopefully you've studied everything on YouTube about how to write, and you've taken a master class in writing, and make sure you've looked at your script through what we use Final Draft, a Microsoft product, about $350, and it'll say, hey, you forgot that Erin hasn't been in now for 4 scenes. They think she's disappeared, dead, or wasn't important to this movie. So you got to have an exquisitely good movie, because there's such crap on TV now. And there's a lot of new movie companies coming out, and make sure that you get with one that you trust, and that they trust you, and that you're back to the fourth thing of masterminding. They got to be like-minded to create a third new energy. And we're just there right now, but at the biggest level, but we're not going to help you. I'm going to tell you in advance right now, because we're not ready. But MarkVictorHansenLibrary.com, which I've asked you all to go to 4 times or 5 times on the show, we're going to become an entertainment company. It'll be Crystal Mark Entertainment probably, but that's 5 years away, because you got to have big bucks to do that. And then we're going to do the same thing Hollywood does, is you go kiss a lot of frogs. But we're going to look at a lot of scripts and say, is this script going to have the impact that Harry Potter did? Because, you've only got a little bit of time, every one of us, and you've got to have a major impact. And yes, I'm going to live another 50 plus years, but I want to have an enormous impact. And that's what you really learn when you read books of wealth and all that, is that everybody becomes a superstar, is writes down that they're going to affect millions or billions, whether it was Rockefeller or Andrew Carnegie or Mark Victor Hansen. I'm going to affect 8 billion people with my books and my intellectual property, but I can't help anyone else with their movies right now, because we're stuck in ours. We got to get it from zero to hero and up on the big screen, and then serialized on TV. At least that's our goal, and what we have in writing and what looks like is happening. And it's exquisitely exciting, but it is a slow process. And of the 13 principles in Think and Grow Rich, Ethel, persistence. You got to be insistent, persistent, consistent, and resist all rejection.
There you go. There you go, Ethel. Thank you.
One last question from you, and then we're done.
Okay. And with regard to Kiss a Lot of Frogs, I read a book called Keys to the Kingdom, and it was David Corbin. I was on the phone with him the other day, and he recommended the author for The Queen's Code.
Mhm.
And in Kings of the Kingdom, they say that guys actually start off as the prince, and women can turn them into a frog. So let me just throw that out because I love men. So let's throw that out there too. Okay, and frequency. So I'll wrap it up with the frequency question because I just want people to understand what you meant when you said frequency, and then I want to get into how they can contact you and anything and everything you want to promote and offer and everything else. So with regard to frequency, the law of vibration is primary to the law of attraction. So the way we vibrate, how we're feeling really low in guilt and shame, or really high in love, joy, and inner peace, is the frequency we're putting out to the field, right? The frequency that we're putting out to the universe. And so then we're attracting back to us, because we're electromagnetic beings based on our thoughts electronically going out to the universe. Then we attract back to us the people, place, and things to make that thought a thing, a reality. So that's what frequency is. So make sure that you guard your vibration, which will then guard your frequency with everything that you've got, and work at getting it high and maintaining it high. You're going to dip down every now and then. We all do. But your natural vibe should be to just bounce right back up again. Okay.
Right. Let me just add to a telephone is nothing but frequency, right? And when I was a kid 75 years ago, there's only party lines in America. That meant if I was talking to a friend of mine, Mabel would get on and say, "Get off the line. I got to talk to somebody right now." And they would override you. And then pretty soon we found out that every house could have a frequency. And then pretty soon, and now there's 8 billion, 10 billion cell phones. They're all on a unique frequency. Here's what Einstein said. When you get on a certain frequency, like I'm going to be healthy, like you did, and you got from sickness to health, I'm going to be wealthy. You go from poverty to wealth, which I've done again and again. Whatever frequency, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to have a frequency of, I'm going to be a really likable person, right? You can do any one of those kind of things and be, but this is remarkable because an influence, because Solomon said in Psalm 72, your job is to be an influencer of influencers. And that's what you are, Erin, an influencer of influencers. You start by influencing yourself, leadership, self-leadership before other leadership, and then you influence all others.
And that's why I started the Life on Track coaching agency, because I want to teach my coaches everything that I know. So I feel like I'm multiplying myself over and over, like tons of people to go out and share the wisdom, into the world to empower people in this world.
Thank you.
All right. So and this is Steve. Hi, guys. So it's Steve both side by side. Steve Taubman, two remarkable people have influenced my life. All right. So let's thank you, Steve. Thank you. So how can they contact you? I know you have your website, markvictorhansen.com. Right. And do you want to give your email out for them to email you? Or?
Just the markvictorhansenlibrary.com is that there's all kinds of stuff you can write me, and we answer that every day. Mark Victor Hansen, add the word library.com if you will.
Okay, I'll do that after we get off here. I'll add that to the show notes. Because otherwise we had that talk about technology, right? It'll take me forever to get in there and do that. And I don't want to hold you up any longer. All right. But everybody heard it. markvictorhansenlibrary.com. Don't walk, run there. Don't walk, run, because Mark, as you can see, is a wealth of information, a wealth of wisdom, an amazing man. And I'm so blessed to know you. And I'm so happy that at Eric's Speaker Hearts, that I got to see you there and give you a hug. And I look forward to seeing you again.
Look forward to it. Nice talking to all of you today. And thank you, Erin, as a great friend. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye. Love you. Bye-bye. All right, everybody. Mark Victor Hansen, what an amazing man. Huge asset to Life on Track and to my life personally. I love that man. Such a good man. So, so I'm going to bring you more information and insights on how you can live your life on track. And I will see you guys again. Have a magnificent day. And always remember to live onward and upward. Love you.